PR Connections Radio presents
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here on PR Connections Radio, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rickelli, and we have a really good show planned for everyone watching all around the world, as we are going to be breaking down and discussing another player profile, as we're going to be talking about Vegas Golden Knights goalie prospect Isaiah Saville. And this is going to be a really interesting and kind of in a different format of a player profile, because with a player profile, majority of the time, what we are doing is that we are kind of looking at what they have done before the NHL and then currently in the NHL. That's what we do for majority of our player profiles. But this one is going to be a tad different, as we are going to kind of be looking at somebody before he actually goes to the NHL. We're kind of going to be talking about what this guy did leading up to being with the Golden Knights and what he has done recently with the Vegas Golden Knights organization in the minor leagues. So when we're talking about a guy like Isaiah Saville, we're going to kind of get started and go back to what he has done before Vegas and then being in Vegas. So before we do that, go to Vegas Hockey Hub at Vegas Hockey Hub on all social media platforms. If you can follow, like, and subscribe, that would be really good. I think that would be great for the channel. So if you want to go to our social media sites at Vegas Hockey Hub and like, share, and subscribe. Also go to prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media. Check out all of the amazing content that is on the network. They upload every single day, and they're on all major social media platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch. PR Connections Radio is everywhere, and they have a bunch of amazing content as they upload every single day. So go to prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media, and check out all the people that are on there. So we do have Vegas Hockey Hub, you are watching right now, but you also have Crypto and Cash, Love of Business. You have great shows like, for example, we have The Power, Cozy Stone. There is some really informational and educational content that you have on prconnectionsradio.com. So check out their stuff as well. So getting into Isaiah Saville, so we're going to have to start all the way back at the beginning with this guy to kind of establish what he did leading into his career. So for Isaiah Saville, let's just get the basics out of the way. So if Isaiah Saville, this guy, currently right now, he is 23 years old. So the Anchorage, Alaska native, this is somebody who has entered the North American junior hockey system. He's been around a couple of places. He was with the Colorado Thunderbirds of the Tier 1 Elite Hockey League. There's also somebody who joined the Minnesota Magicians of the North American Hockey League. Like, this is somebody who has kind of earned his way and has kind of been around a little bit before getting into the professional hockey. So really fascinating how in 2017, 2018, Isaiah Saville playing for the Minnesota Magicians of the North American Hockey League. Now, this team, unfortunately, did relocate at one point, and they are now what they call the Wisconsin Wendigo. But for the Minnesota Magicians out there in the North American Hockey League, they would end up with a very interesting record with Saville as their goalie, as in 41 games that season, he had 21 wins, 13 losses, and one overtime loss. And then he would have 2 shutouts, a goals against average of 2.41, and a 92.7 save percentage. So for someone like Isaiah Saville, for him to go from being born in Alaska to then playing in Colorado, to then playing in Minnesota, then he moves on to the next team we're going to talk about in a second, it really shows you the hard work and the dedication you have to try to make it to the NHL. So for Isaiah Saville, this is somebody who at the age of 17 has already been moving around, has already played for multiple teams, already played for 2 different leagues, like I said, played for the Tier 1 Elite Hockey League and played for North American Hockey League. And what I find really interesting about Isaiah Saville is really where he got his main start, because he would play in the United States Hockey League for the Tri-City Storm. Now, the Tri-City Storm is out in Nebraska. So, Tri-City Storm out there in Nebraska, they play in United States Hockey League. And more importantly, when it comes to the Tri-City Storm, he would be with them for only 1 season, but it would be a very impactful season for Isaiah Saville. So this 1 season that he would play for Tri-City in 34 games in the United States Hockey League, he had 25 wins, 4 losses, and 3 overtime losses. He would have a goals against average under 2, a 1.9 goals against average in the United States Hockey League, and a save percentage of 92.5. Just really incredible when you really stop and analyze it. And when Isaiah Saville and the Tri-City Storm would go to the 2019 Clark Cup playoffs, which is the playoffs in the United States Hockey League, the Clark Cup, the Tri-City would not only clinch the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, but they would sweep Des Moines before losing in the Western Conference Finals to Sioux Falls. So, for Isaiah Saville in 6 playoff games in 2019 in the United States Hockey League, he went .500, had a goals against average of 2.2, and a save percentage of 91%. And what I find really interesting, though, about the 2019 United States Hockey League, this is a Tri-City Storm who went 45-12 in the Western Conference. They were by far the best team in the United States Hockey League that season. There's also the same Tri-City Storm that would have a Player of the Year in Ronnie Attard, and they would have a Rookie of the Year in Zach Jones. But here is something that was interesting about Isaiah Saville. While playing for the United States Hockey League, not only would he be named to the All-United States Hockey League first team, but he would win Goaltender of the Year in the United States Hockey League. So a major accomplishment for such a young guy who, once again, is around 18, 19 years of age at this point. So for someone like Isaiah Saville, who in 2019 would be named the United States Hockey League Goaltender of the Year. And that All-USHL first team had some really good names on there as well. So we talked about Ronnie Attard, who plays for the Lehigh Valley Phantoms in the American Hockey League. He was the Player of the Year. And you also have a guy named Bobby Brink, who's also a prospect for the Philadelphia Flyers. He was eventually taken in the 2nd round by Philadelphia. He's playing in the AHL right now. And you have Brett Murray, who is a prospect for the Buffalo Sabres. He's playing in the AHL for the Rochester Americans. So really talented squad on the All-USHL first team. There's a lot of people you can talk about there. And then when playing for the Tri-City Storm, Isaiah Saville would play alongside future NHLers like Shane Pinto, who has now become a really solid player for the Ottawa Senators, Matthew Nyes, who's playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Zach Jones, who is with the New York Rangers at this very moment. So to say that the Tri-City Storm was a talented organization would be an understatement. And just to kind of establish and kind of prove a point here, when it comes to the Goaltender of the Year, previous people who have won that trophy was someone like Dan Ellis, who played over 200 games in the NHL. You also had Alex Stalock, who currently plays for the Anaheim Ducks in the NHL. He has actually played over 170 games in the NHL as a goaltender. And then a recent example of someone who has won that award is Schmid from the New Jersey Devils. Schmid is currently playing for the New Jersey Devils, and as someone who actually played a few playoff games for the New Jersey Devils last year, he has been proven to be a really good talent in the NHL for New Jersey. So for someone like Isaiah Saville to have that award in 2019 as the 2019 goaltender of the year is very impressive and showed the upcoming talent that he ended up having in the next level. So after being in that one season for the Tri-City Storm, after winning goaltender of the year, and after being named to the All-United States Hockey League first team, he would end up getting drafted by your Vegas Golden Knights. So in 2019, in the 5th round, Isaiah Saville would be selected by your Vegas Golden Knights. I also want to briefly mention real quick that Isaiah Saville, that 5th round pick, came from the Minnesota Wild. And that came from the Brad Hunt trade. So for anybody who doesn't remember, Brad Hunt was with the Vegas Golden Knights the first 2 years as a defenseman for Vegas, and he eventually would get flipped around the trade deadline to the Minnesota Wild for a 2019 5th round pick. So I'm not going to be Steve Dangle. I'm not going to do a trade tree, but something interesting to note that the Vegas Golden Knights get this goalie prospect and someone who maybe could be an NHLer someday because they traded Brad Hunt to the Minnesota Wild for a 5th round pick who eventually became Isaiah Saville. So he gets selected by the Vegas Golden Knights, and he actually would end up playing in college hockey instead. So instead of going immediately to the minors and playing for the ECHL or playing for the AHL, Isaiah Saville would actually make a smart decision and play for the Omaha Mavericks of the NCAA. And I do want to quickly mention with the Omaha Mavericks, this is a team that has done relatively well in the past, but the Omaha Mavericks play in a certain division. So they play in a certain division alongside Colorado College. They play alongside the Miami Redhawks, Western Michigan, Denver, North Dakota. Like, there is some really good teams in their same conference in that 29 from when he played there. So for Isaiah Saville, how did he perform in the 3 seasons he played in Omaha? So 2019-2020, he had 10 wins, 11 losses, and 4 overtime losses. He would have 1 shutout with a goals against average of 2.8. You know what? Let's shrug it off. First season in college hockey. This is the same Omaha Mavericks team that in 2019-2020 went 8-13-3 in conference and went 14-17-5 in an overall record in the 2019-2020 season. Okay, moving on to 2020-2021. Obviously, this was a season that was kind of still impacted by COVID. I will mention that as a very later on. But in this season for Omaha, they would end up being ranked in college hockey. So Omaha Mavericks would end up being a top 15 ranked school, while Isaiah Saville would be in net. They would have an overall record of 14 wins, 11 losses, and 1 overtime loss. And they would actually be ranked 4th in the North Collegiate Hockey Conference in the standings. So because of the COVID pandemic, they actually played more or less games than they did before. So normally in a normal collegiate season, they would not play just 26 games. But because of what happened with COVID, they played almost every single game inter-conference schedule. So Omaha was going up against Minnesota, going up against St. Cloud State, going up against North Dakota. So because of the whole COVID situation, they ended up just once again playing against their own talent. Now, they would be in the 2021 tournament for their conference, and Omaha would end up losing to Denver in the quarterfinals. So that would kind of end the story there for the 2020-2021 season. So comparing to what happened the year before in 2019-2020, you have to kind of sit back and look at it from a certain perspective, because he plays in his first tournament play for Omaha. They would lose in the quarterfinals. But overall, for Isaiah Saville, he would play in 24 games out of 26 for Omaha, and he would have 12 wins, 11 losses, and 1 overtime loss. He would have a goals against average of 3.03 and a save percentage similar to the year before with 90.7. So, unfortunately for Isaiah Saville, his stats kind of went up instead of going down. But you know what? Let's shrug it off. Let's see how Isaiah Saville would do in his final season playing for Omaha. As in 2021, 2022, this is a Omaha team that would play in 38 games that year, and they would go 21-17. Now, unfortunately, they would not be ranked as they did the year before, but they would lose in the quarterfinals once again to Western Michigan. So, 2 years of playing in the tournament at Omaha, both years losing in the quarterfinals. So, the final season playing for Omaha, he played in 30 of 38 games. He would have 16 wins to 14 losses, 4 shutouts for Isaiah Saville, which was the most at that point in his career. 4 shutouts and a save percentage of 2.52. So, for Isaiah Saville to kind of end the 2021-2022 season, he ended up showing that he was showing a level of progression. That's what you wanted from your Vegas Golden Knights. You want to see a goalie prospect progress as a minor league prospect, as a goaltending prospect. In fact, you've noticed a lot, and I've actually noticed this as well, when it comes to goaltending prospects, a lot of them will either go down to college hockey or will return to junior hockey to get more experience and to get more ice time. And that is what Isaiah Saville did. So to kind of recap his stats with Omaha, 38 wins, 41 losses, a 2.8 goals against average, and a 90.7 save percentage. Now, on paper, that does not look great. All right. On the surface, it does not look fantastic for Isaiah Saville, but I want to keep in mind one variable, all right? This is also one variable that we'll mention and we will bring up again towards the end of the show. Isaiah Saville being drafted in 2019, COVID happens the very next season. And because of that, 2 whole seasons of development were delayed essentially. Because of what happened with COVID and the whole lockdown and shutdown and everything that happened in 2020, essentially the end of the 2019-2020 season was canceled for college hockey. And the 2020-2021 college hockey season was shortened. They took about 12 to 14 games off the schedule, depending on where you were. So when you really stop and analyze what happened with Isaiah Saville, you really have to look at COVID and kind of factor that in, because he did not play as many games as he normally would have. And he would have not gotten the same amount of development playing more games in college hockey because of the whole COVID situation. So with Isaiah Saville, I kind of have to sit there and really kind of give an asterisk to the win-loss record, because once again, he didn't really get a chance. And he really didn't get a chance to properly develop because of the fact that this was going on during COVID, and essentially it tossed everybody into a world spin, including hockey prospects. So Isaiah Saville would then make the jump to minor league hockey in 2021. So at the age of 21 years old, Isaiah Saville would then play for the AHL Henderson Silver Knights. He would play in 8 games that season for the Silver Knights. And I do want to mention, by the way, I went to one of his first games. He played in the AHL. He picked up a really solid victory on that night. And I was personally impressed with what I saw from Isaiah Saville. This was a player who looked like he was very calm, very direct. He seemed like he wasn't acting like a 21-year-old. Instead, he was acting like a 25, 26-year-old, the way he acted and performed in net. And I do want to mention with Isaiah Saville that in that 2021-2022 season, he did a really good job. And I'm not just saying that because I did get to see him live, but this was an Isaiah Saville that joined the Henderson Silver Knights late in the 2021-2022 season, and he made a very good mark in that 2021-2022 season. As Isaiah Saville, in those 8 games, he had 6 wins, 1 loss. And this is actually really interesting. 6 wins, 1 loss, a goal average of 2.05, and a save percentage of 92.9. So for a 21-year-old goaltender, he made his impact. He made a mark on the Henderson Silver Knights based on the fact that when it came to his 8-game stint after coming over from college hockey, he went 6-1 with the Silver Knights. He seemed like someone that was going to kind of enter minor league hockey and take a big step forward. Now, what would Isaiah Saville do the next season, aka his first full-time season playing in minor league hockey? Well, because of the goaltending depth and because of injuries and all the stuff that happened in 2022, 2023, Isaiah Saville would split the season between the AHL in Henderson and the ECHL in Savannah. And for the Savannah Ghost Pirates, he would actually play majority of the season in Savannah. And I'm not going to say I'm not using this as an excuse, but the Savannah Ghost Pirates in 2022, 2023, they had arguably one of the worst teams in the ECHL that year. This was a Savannah Ghost Pirates team that in their expansion year had 28 wins, 34 regulation losses, and 10 overtime/shootout losses. So for the Savannah Ghost Pirates, it just really seemed like because this is year 1 of them being an organization in Savannah, that there was a rough patch. There was a lot of growing pains in the ECHL for Savannah. And the fact that they only won 28 games out of 72, I'm not going to put the blame on Isaiah Saville. Similar to a certain player we talked about a while ago when he had his stint in the ECHL, I did not blame him either, because when you have a team that is struggling to pick up wins, I'm not going to put that on a goaltender. But in 2022, 2023, in Savannah, Isaiah Saville would have 8 wins, 15 regular season losses, and 6 overtime losses. There's also the same Isaiah Saville that did have 2 shutouts out of his 8 wins, but a goals against average of 3.09 and a save percentage of 92%. Once again, I do want to mention that because the Savannah Ghost Pirates had one of the worst records in the ECHL, I will give him a pass when it comes to that ordeal. Because once again, there's only so much you can do with an organization that had the 3rd to worst record in the ECHL. Now, how did Isaiah Saville do in the Henderson Silver Knights, you might ask? He actually ended up doing a little bit better than he did in the ECHL. As in 10 games for the Henderson Silver Knights, he would have 4 wins, 5 losses, and a save percentage of 90.2. is also the same Isaiah Saville that was getting called up and sent down because of injuries that happened to Vegas. And speaking of injuries to Vegas, while playing for the Henderson Silver Knights, Isaiah Saville would get called up to Vegas for the first time in his career, as on May 9th of 2023, due to injuries to Brisebois, due to injuries to Thompson, Aiden Hill and his situation, Isaiah Saville would get called up to back up Yuri Patera in the NHL. And more importantly, he would actually be called up a few more times by Vegas before getting sent up and sent back down. But it was a huge deal for a guy who is 22 years old, for somebody to being called up and being a backup goalie in the NHL, regardless if you have any playing time or not. The fact that you're in the show and the fact that you're playing and you're actually having the jersey on as a backup goaltender, it was a big deal for a prospect like Isaiah Saville, as not only would this not be the first time it would happen, but he would more importantly not be called back down for the rest of the year. So from May 9th of 2023 to the end of the season, he actually would never be sent back down to the Vegas Golden Knights organization, as he would end up being a healthy scratch and or backup goalie for the Vegas Golden Knights. And when it comes to Isaiah Saville, I really look at what he is doing in Henderson, because you have him, you have Yuri Patera. They're going to be your backstop for the remainder of the 2023-2024 season. This is going to be year 2 of him playing full-time in minor league hockey. Year 3 if you count his 8-game stint in Henderson for 2021-2022. But what I like about Isaiah Saville is that he is such a young goaltender that he is going to make an impact for the Vegas Golden Knights organization. Him being almost 24 years old and him making the progress that he is making, the fact that Isaiah Saville has been trusted enough to be sent up and sent down from the AHL and NHL, and the fact that he was a backup goalie for a little bit in the NHL, all it tells me about Isaiah Saville is you look at this photo here of him and Jeremy Swayman of the Boston Bruins. But when it comes to Isaiah Saville, I really look at what he has done throughout his career, and he seems like someone who, as long as the Golden Knights prepare him and bring him back and have him be a member of the Vegas Golden Knights, I have no doubt in my mind that Isaiah Saville could someday become a solid, reliable, constant backup goalie for the Vegas Golden Knights. I have no doubt that if for some reason, if Aiden Hill has to go down again, if Logan Thompson has an injury, don't be shocked if Patara and Saville end up being your goaltenders in net for your Vegas Golden Knights. And not to even go that far, but do not be shocked if Isaiah Saville by this point next year has made his official NHL debut and he is actually in net playing for your Vegas Golden Knights, not just being the backup goaltender. Because this guy has shown over the past couple of seasons, regardless if he was playing in the United States Hockey League, regardless if he was playing in the AHL, ECHL, playing in college hockey, he has shown that he can progress and he can get better as time goes on. So, to answer the question that's on the thumbnail, is Isaiah Saville a future NHLer for the Vegas Golden Knights? I will sit here and say, yes, he is a future NHLer. Now, the main question will be, will the Vegas Golden Knights bring him back as he's a restricted free agent in 2024? So, I'll leave that up to you. That's a question you have to answer in the comments down below. But for a guy like Isaiah Saville, hopefully this player profile kind of shows you a little bit more than you did before. So, this is Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rickelli. And until next time, continue watching hockey, go support junior hockey, and go Knights, go.